Washington Commanders will, in fact, be playing their starters versus the Dallas Cowboys in Week 18. I'm going to decide and tell you guys whether that's a good idea by head coach Dan Quinn to kick off today's show. Then we'll go over the NFC playoff picture and what that looks like and what the Commanders need to do to solidify their spot in the 6th spot in the NFC playoff picture. And then we'll finish up today's show by asking the question, should Chris Rodriquez Jr. be the new #1 running back here for the Washington Commanders over Brian Robinson Jr.? I'll answer that question at the end of today's show, so make sure you guys stick around. Make sure you like the video here. If you're excited for playoff football here in Washington, man, it's been since 2020 since the team has played a playoff game, and back then, they had an 8-8 season and made the playoffs with Alex Smith going up against Tom Brady in the eventual Super Bowl champions. You had Taylor Heineke playing in that football game, guys. So make sure you like that video if you haven't already. Really do appreciate all of your support. Okay, so Dan Quinn took the podium today before practice and told the media that he does plan on playing his starters in Week 18 versus the Dallas Cowboys, and that they're going to, quote-unquote, fight like hell to keep that 6th spot in the NFC playoff picture right now. This is what Coach Quinn had to say earlier today. We're going to go after this as hard as we can. The seeding part of it, we think it's really important. We realize having the 6th seed is a good thing, and we're going to fight like hell to keep that. So after the win last night against the Atlanta Falcons, you secure your spot in the playoffs, and you move past the Green Bay Packers, who lost to the Minnesota Vikings yesterday. So you currently have a record of 11-5. But of course, if the Packers win next week and the Commanders lose against the Cowboys, then they move back down to the 7th seed, and you're most likely playing the Philadelphia Eagles, who are currently locked in to the #2 spot. They cannot move up to the #1 seed. So if you get that 7th seed, you're going to Philly on the road. Very difficult opponent there on Wild Card Weekend. So pretty much the way that it goes, guys, is if the Commanders win, you lock up the 6th seed, and you're playing the Los Angeles Rams at SoFi Stadium. And by the way, that's pretty much a home game for the Commanders, all right? The Rams fan, like, what Rams fans are there? I mean, we got Jackson Durham here at Chat Sports. He's the only Rams fan I know, all right? The Commanders are absolutely going to be able to make that a home game if they can get the 6th seed and play the Los Angeles Rams on the road in Inglewood. So, yes, I think it is absolutely the right call here. You know, I know last night after the game, I was a little bit wary of playing Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin and Frankie Louvu, these guys you have to have in the postseason. But after thinking it over and thinking about the difference between playing the Eagles on the road and then playing the Rams on the road, it's so much easier to play the Rams on the road, guys. That 6th seed absolutely matters for the Washington Commanders. I think it is the right call to play the starters, at least to start the game this week. Now, listen, man, if the game gets out of hand, if the Commanders are killing the Cowboys, if somehow the Cowboys are killing the Commanders, which would not be a good sign, then, yeah, you can sit some of the key guys. You can sit Jaden Daniels. You can sit Terry McLaurin. You can sit Frankie Louvu, maybe Bobby Wagner, a couple other players. I really don't expect Marshawn Lattimore to play this week either. You got to make sure that he's good to go for the postseason. But, yeah, I think it's the right call by Dan Quinn to put these guys out there to try and secure that 6th spot so that you can play almost like a pseudo home game against the Los Angeles Rams at SoFi Stadium. Because I got to say, man, I think the Commanders could potentially upset the Eagles in Philly, but that's definitely a tougher test than going to L.A. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Should the Washington Commanders be playing their starters this week? Simply give me a Y for yes or an N for no. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And while I'm telling you about Prize Picks, go down there in the comment section, find that pinned comment at the top of the comment section, and give me a yes or a no. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks. And Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action all on your phone this football season. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly, and you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So you guys can see here for my lineup here, or projected lineup, we're going to take the more on receiving yards for Jamar Chase, the more on Jackson Smith and Jigba for receiving yards, and the less on Calvin Ridley receiving yards. So you guys can download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. And that's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you use promo code CLNS when you download the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, run your game. So let's talk about this here. Should the Washington Commanders make Chris Rodriquez Jr. the number one running back here with this team? Because, I mean, B-Rob, he's had some good moments this year. He's been a very solid back, but he's struggled as of late. And Chris Rodriquez Jr. has been very, very good. He's shown some really good vision. He's got some really nice acceleration, and he really finishes runs. And I really appreciate that about him. And I think at least he should be a rotational mainstay in this rotation. I don't want him to be an afterthought in the fourth quarter. I want you to get him the football and get him carries in the first, second, third, and fourth quarters. I want him to be a mainstay in this rotation because right now, man, he's been the most efficient runner on the Washington Commanders this season. You take a look at the yards per carry this season. Brian Robinson Jr. sitting at 4.3. Chris Rodriquez Jr. sitting at 4.9. And that's a pretty sizable difference there when it comes to yards per carry. So Chris hasn't had as many reps as B-Rob has, sure, but when he's been out there, man, I think Chris Rodriquez Jr. has had some really good games. He pretty much shut down the New York Giants the last time we played the Giants in the fourth quarter. He pretty much ended that game. He choked them out. And then, he's had some good games like the Titans game, and he had a really nice showing last week against the Falcons as well. So I think that Chris Rodriquez Jr. has earned the right to stay in this rotation. But we also have to keep in mind here that Austin Ekeler could be making his return to the lineup in time for the postseason as well. He could be back in the lineup as early as this week, according to head coach Dan Quinn. So what do you do then? Like, you got B-Rob, you got Austin Ekeler, and that was a pretty decent duo in its own right, but now you got an up-and-coming guy in Chris Rodriquez Jr. that you really feel good about. I think you probably go to a true rotation here, a true committee, and you let all three of these guys get their reps to make sure that this rotation stays fresh throughout the rest of this season. B-Rob's, you can definitely tell there's been some tread on his tires. Give him a little bit of a break. Allow him to really go full bore when he gets his reps. And Chris Rodriquez Jr., I think, has definitely earned the right to be in this rotation. But let me know down there in the comments section, who's RB1 here in Washington? Do you still believe in Brian Robinson Jr., type BR? Do you think Austin Ekeler should get most of the snaps when and if he gets back this season, type AE? Or do you think Chris Rodriquez Jr. has earned the right to be this team's number one running back at this point in the season, type CRJ, if you believe in Chris Rodriquez Jr. Now, before I go here, I want to take some stock in where the Commanders currently sit in the NFL in terms of where they are with their offensive and defensive team rankings. Now, the offense, like they have all season long, man, they're still within the top 10 in every major category. Points per game, they're top 5 at 28.9, just scored another 30 points against the Atlanta Falcons this past weekend. They're still top 5 in yards per game. They're less so in yards per play, top 10 in that regard. But then in third down and red zone, ranking 6th in those situational moments. You can thank Jaden Daniels for that, by the way. He's been phenomenal in both of those areas here this season. And the giveaways, they're still top 10 in that, even though they've been giving the ball away a bit more lately. So you got to keep your eye on those giveaways. But then on defense, it's a very average defense, probably more below average defense, man. They give up a lot of touchdowns when teams get into the red zone. Slightly above average on third down, so they're a little bit better in that regard. Yards per game, they're still top 10 in that category. So, the offense is taken, and that really shows the time of possession there for the Washington Commanders, and I think that they're doing a good job there. But the giveaways here, they're below average in that. Same thing with points per game. And really, guys, I think that this defense does get better when you put Marshon Lattimore in that rotation, right? We've seen once you implement Marshon, what happens to this team, because plain simply, this cornerback room isn't good enough, guys. We talked about it last night with Michael Davis being arguably the worst starting cornerback in the National Football League right now, and he was replacing the guy that probably was the worst starting quarterback in the league before that, in Benjamin St. Juste. So this is a team that is desperate to get Marshon Lattimore back for the postseason. You got to have him on the field. You got to have Seymour Stroll on the other side of him. And then you got to have Ink Benogany in the slot. And then, honestly, this offseason, you got to load up this room with cornerback talent, because Lord knows this defense needs it. And, I think when you get Marshon back, this is more of a true league average defense than a below average one. But just keep that in mind. So let me know down there in the comments section, does Washington even have a 1% chance to win the Super Bowl this year with Jaden Daniels? Let me know down there in the comments section. Does Washington have a fighting chance to hoist that Lombardi trophy for the first time in a long time in Jaden Daniels' rookie season? Let me know your thoughts down there in the comments section. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of today's show. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're going to be bringing out our preview in the days to come for Commanders versus Cowboys. Hopefully the Commanders can give a big FU to Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys for beating them a few weeks back, and hopefully this team can avoid the sweep versus the Cowgirls. So we're going to have our preview on that later in the week. Injury updates on Marshawn Lattimore and more coming throughout the week as well. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button to never miss any big Commanders news here in Week 18.